Maharaj says, the world is but a show, glittering and empty. It is, and yet it is not. It is there as long as I want to see it and take part in it. When I cease caring, it dissolves. It has not cause and serves no purpose. It just happens when we are absent-minded. It appears exactly as it looks, but there's no depth in it, nor meaning. Only the onlooker is real. Call himself, that's with a capital S, or Atman. Atman. To the self, the world is but a colorful show, which he enjoys as long as it lasts and forgets it when it's over. Whatever happens on the stage makes him shudder in terror or roll with laughter, yet all the time he is aware that it is but a show. Without desire or fear, he enjoys it as it happens. We can probably just talk the whole hour about just that one paragraph, right? The world is but a show, glittering and empty. So here's first sentence, we're already into emptiness, right? So we're kind of really getting in there quickly. And emptiness is the foundation of Buddhist thought, yeah. The concept of emptiness is, and we should just note, and I've said this before, but the English word empty does not do the word shunyata justice. When we're referring to emptiness, we're speaking to something that is not limited to or bound by color, and I mean this in a very rich way. Not by labels, not by cause and effect. It's not bound by time. It's not bound by any of the structures that we live by and understand in this human realm. The emptiness, our nature, really when they talk about emptiness, we're saying we're not self-existent, we don't exist the way we think we do. Your ultimate nature is prior to all of this movement, everything you've ever identified yourself as, and down to the bare bones, right? Even if we strip off the names and the labels and all that, you still figure, well, I'm human and it's planet Earth. And according to Maharaj, and according to many schools of thought, this is, even when you simplify it, it's still empty of self-essence. We are creating this from somewhere prior to even the consciousness that we're speaking with now and communicating with now. So it's obviously complicated stuff to wrap one's head around, and just beginning to speak about it is always an interesting journey. What I would like to do is encourage us as we listen to him to just listen with the heart. It's nice to use the mind, and it's really helpful that we have these minds that are able to analyze, but don't worry about grabbing onto it too much and trying to figure anything out. When we realize our emptiness, it will be a direct realization beyond any thought, beyond any analysis. And all of this is helpful, and we write it all down, we share it with people, we debate about it and things like that. But ultimately, this is a realization that happens in the heart, yeah, and as the heart. So the world is but a show, glittering and empty. It is, and yet it is not. You know, this is something that happened when the Buddha, I've talked about it before, there were the three turnings of the wheel, right? When Shakyamuni Buddha, Gautam Buddha first attained enlightenment, and that first awakening, he came out of that state, and you know, he gave us the Four Noble Truths, and he told us that life is suffering. And then the second wheel, years later, when he went back into deep meditation, he came out and he said, you know what? Nothing exists. Everything is just emptiness, and nothing exists. He went into another deep round of meditation later on. This is what we call the third turning of the wheel. And this is when he said, everything is empty of self-essence, but it still functions, and therefore we need to care. Yeah, we need to pay attention, because even though our suffering is an illusion, and ultimately it is illusion, every suffering we'll ever experience, people are still experiencing it, and it still hurts. And so for this reason, this is where the whole concept of the Bodhisattva comes from, right? The Bodhisattva is well on her or his path, doing the work, meditating, having realizations, recognizing the emptiness also quite glorious and can be quite blissful. So why not just exit, go to nirvana, which is that enlightened space, right? And never come back, right? And then there's the concept of the bodhisattva. The bodhisattva says, I'm seeing into my emptiness. I understand that I don't exist the way I think I do. I understand that the suffering isn't really real, but I see people experiencing it, and for them it's real right now. So I'm going to keep coming back. I'm going to keep taking a body, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, until everyone realizes who they really are. I've been aware of these vows for a long time. I was very blessed to be given these vows many years ago. And I will tell you that in all these years, there's always been this understanding of we keep coming back until everyone else is enlightened, right? This is how it's kind of written. And it was really this past week or two where I don't know what I was doing, but I had this moment, and it's so obvious when you have these moments, when you realize there's nothing noble at all in these vows, because you are every one of those people that's experiencing suffering. There is no separation. And so to the ignorant mind, and this is a term they use a lot in Buddhism and yogic thought, right? And we're not putting anyone down. We're not saying you're stupid. It's not about that. It's just our misperception of the world around us. The ignorant mind thinks, oh, I'm attaining some happiness, some light. I could kind of, in a matter of words, just being kind of silly right now, dissolve away and be done with this. But wait a second, there's people over there that are suffering and I might want to help them, and that would be a really good thing. I don't want the people I love to be suffering, right? And then we of course have layer upon layer of realization. And the more you realize the self directly, the more you see into your divinity or your emptiness. And honestly, I don't really care if you say divinity or emptiness. And there are schools of thought that battle and debate and have for thousands of years, and I just couldn't give a rat's ass, honestly. Divinity, God, or emptiness, they're the same to me, personally. So if it resonates with you, take it and run with it. Hold it in your heart. But if you hear it and it's not resonating, find something that feels right in your bones, yeah? The more we realize our divine nature, or the more we realize just how empty we are of all this story, the more we can't help but be of service. The more I have to bow down to you. The more I have to bow down to every person for that matter. And I don't care what political party they're subscribing to, and I don't care what their history is like. The more I truly see into my emptiness and into that pure awareness, the more in love I am with everyone and want to take you to my heart, right? So, moving from there, we've got the Bodhisattva now. We've got a little understanding of the Bodhisattva. By the way, we're living in a time where it was, you could say, prophesied that all of the Bodhisattvas would come back to the planet. And it's right about now. It's right about now. So I think that's a very interesting point. There are a lot of prophecies from different traditions that point to this time and things that will happen in this time. So the Native Americans have their own prophecies about many, many people of many colors, that the warriors of the rainbow, right, coming back to the planet, being on the planet at this time and working together and rekindling the indigenous wisdom, rekindling the old wisdom and our ancestral wisdom. And there is one Hopi prophecy specifically that talked about the time when the red-robed man of the East comes to this land, to Turtle Island as they call it. And I would interpret that as the Tibetans, yeah, that wisdom proliferating and making its way to the West. I don't think it's any accident that we have so much available to us right now at our fingertips, wisdom traditions from around the world that are ancient, many of which were held secret for a long time. So just listening with the heart, right? entourage, it's there as long as he wants to see it. For someone like you or I, there's no getting out of here. We're seeing it. And we're actually going to see the version of it that we're kind of resting in according to whatever we've experienced in the past, i.e. karma, right? So he has an option. He has that option at any given moment in time to kind of just sit in pure awareness, unlike those of us that are kind of stuck in this body, yeah? Maybe for some of us, the only respite is sleep time, yeah? And if the sleep is disturbed, that's rough, right? And then during dream sleep, there's still there's some semblance of the I, yeah? It is there as long as I want to see it and take part in it. When I cease caring, it dissolves. It has not cause and serves no purpose. So you and I can't just say, I don't care. You know what? I've heard this reality thing is empty and you know, it's not self-existent, so I just don't care and I'm going to stop experiencing it. And obviously it's not as simple as that, right? But what he's speaking to here is something more subtle. When I cease being invested in it, I think is really what he's saying here. That's the essence of those words. When I cease investing myself in it, yeah. When I cease looking for an answer out there, looking for fulfillment out there, looking for anything to complete me, because that automatically assumes there's something missing here. When you realize the fullness of the self fully, nothing's ever going to be lacking. There's no thing to lack. There is nothing, and this is the interesting thing with emptiness, because it's really like this very full emptiness. There's no thing. It's devoid of anything. But it's pure awareness, right? You can't define it. You can't quantify it. You can't qualify it. It's just beyond all of that. And this ceasing of caring is kind of like this natural result that will happen. Yeah. And this is where people have realizations. Eckhart Tolle is a really sweet one to mention, right? He had his awakening in a moment where he was feeling suicidal. So he's feeling suicidal, and he says to himself, I can't live with myself. And in a moment, a little voice in his head says, you can't live with yourself? Are you one or are you two? Yeah. And in this moment, something shifted. Boom, awake. He's a rare case. Most of us aren't going to wake up all in one shot like he did. I will assume he's had many lives of deep meditation and study. And there's this concept of when you realize the direct perception of emptiness, when you realize the self directly, or you have this experience of that direct perception of your emptiness. Once this happens, and we're coming from Buddhist, Hindu, all these other thought systems, right, where they believe in reincarnation. Once this happens, you will not live more than 7 lives. You will not reincarnate more than 7 lifetimes after that, unless you choose to come back, yeah? But you're kind of guaranteed to be finished off, if you will. You will experience that full enlightenment, the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, yeah? That full sustaining enlightenment within 7 lifetimes. So for me, I look at someone like him, and he's just one example of someone who just had this realization just by kind of putting 2 and 2 together, and boom, he's wide awake. So for me in my heart, I recognize, you're someone special and you've done this before, yeah? Speaking of which, for those of us drawn to anything like satsang, to dharma, to meditation, to things like that, in this moment, especially in this moment where there's so much chaos out there, right? So much confusion, so much uncertainty, right? The go-to in our culture is to want to numb out, right? Want to check out, numb out, keep ourselves busy, blah, blah, blah. If you're here, or anywhere else for that matter, and you're diving into your heart, I would suggest that you've probably done this before, and this isn't your first rodeo, yeah? So I think, like, be gentle with yourself, and while humility is essential on the path, there's also this thing called divine pride, and holding your divine pride is a very, very delicate thing. understand, I am, one way to say it is, I am a child of the infinite, right? So if you're coming from a God perspective, right? And you believe in a God that's omnipresent, so is everywhere, right? And infinite, then you must be its child, yeah? Or somehow connected to it at the very least. Then you can't be so far away from that pure love that you understand that God to be, that divine to be. And similarly, if all existence is emptiness and there's just pure, all-abiding, spacious awareness that precedes everything, how could you be any different than me? And how can we be any different from Eckhart Tolle or whomever, yeah? There's an intrinsic connection. So with the divine pride, there's a certain amount of being comfortable settling into the possibility you are not an accident, you're not just catching up, you're not behind in anything, you're not broken, you're not flawed, you're right in time. And being able to feel into the depths of your heart, if you go deep enough, you will recognize the beauty of your heart. And I know there are a lot of broken hearts out there, and honestly, there are a lot of twisted up hearts out there. But if you go deep enough, you will find a precious, precious diamond there if you continue to dive into it. So it really doesn't matter what you've done in this lifetime. And it genuinely does not matter. There have been beings, gosh, I always forget the Buddhist name that is pretty well known in the Tibetan lineage, who killed most of his family and per the instruction of his mother. And he became enlightened in that same lifetime. We have to know this now. We have to know this now. That no matter what you've done, no matter what you've thought, no matter what you've felt, if you take the time to find out who you really are, you will find out you are beautiful and beyond anything the mind could fathom. Divine pride and humility, they're just kind of hanging out, yeah? Right next to each other. It's not an ego issue. It just happens. So going back to Sri Nisargadatta, it is there, and he's talking about the world, it's there as long as I want to see it and take part in it. When I cease caring, it dissolves. It has no cause and serves no purpose. It just happens when we are absent-minded. So, okay, we're only 3 sentences in, okay? I mean, he's already like blowing all the tops off, right? It has no cause, it serves no purpose. I mean, it only happens when we're absent-minded. He's talking on the ultimate level, yeah? This world arises and dissolves. And it's ultimately, we like to think there's a purpose. The truth of who you are, the pure awareness of who you are, is so utterly infinite. It doesn't need a purpose. The magnificence of your true nature is so far beyond purpose. Yet we create this world. And we love story. And I can't help but think lately, and this is, my little human mind, after kissing the divine from time to time, and I feel like we're just, we're getting more and more cozy as the days go by with each other. I can't help but believe this emptiness, this awareness, this self is just in love with story for the sake of story. Yeah? And consciousness just really has fun seeing what it can do with just pure energy. choice for our lives. We play house with our partner. We decide to raise kids. Story, 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 yeah? So in what he's saying when he's saying there's no purpose, yeah? What I feel when it comes to things like this, I sit with this a lot, where it's like, on the ultimate level, nothing really matters. You can do whatever the heck you want. And equally as so, every little thing matters. And it's just walking that line. Because yeah, ultimately we will all go back to the oneness that we are. We will remember, we'll wake up. This is the whole game, yeah? And every little thing we do kind of ripples out to the edges of existence, yeah? Every little thing we do leaves an imprint. And because we are so infinite, we created not only all this beauty and love and all these sattvic qualities, peace and harmony and joyfulness and all this, but we also created a whole bunch of gnarly stuff. So we could have contrast, so we could play a game. And the bottom line is we are damn good at it. We have created all kinds of hell realms, all kinds of suffering, and we see that reflected in the world around us, right? Many people are suffering at any given moment, so many different causes. So how can we not serve humanity and help serve to heal and reconcile that suffering, right? It's really the only choice to make. And on one level, you could say, it doesn't matter in one way, and it completely matters in another. And I think that's important to sit with. And sit with in your heart, and then see, where do I want to go from here? You could be self-serving your whole life, and you're just going to keep doing it again. You're going to get born again and again and again until you decide, I want to move into love. I want to honor life. I want to find out who I really am. But what I think is important here is to pull all the remove the veils of judgment first and foremost. Don't worry about what you've done in the past. We're looking right here, right now. Yeah? Right here, right now. I just want to say thank you for being here. I love you. I really, really love. This is just one of my favorite things in the world to do. Satsang and ceremony, they're just my favorite things in the world to do. They bring me so much joy. And maybe it's just like the most intimate we can get with each other, right? So intimate, so beautiful. And we get to touch on what really matters. It appears exactly as it looks, but there's no depth in it nor meaning. He's just going for it. Only the onlooker is real. Call him self or Atman. To the self, the world is but a colorful show, which he enjoys as long as it lasts and then forgets when it's over. Whatever happens on the stage makes him shudder in terror or roll with laughter. Yet all the time he is aware that it is but a show. And I think the only difference between us and this Atman or this self that he's talking about is we're having the same experience, except we don't get that it's empty. So when we're shuddering in terror, man, that terror is real, right? And all encompassing. And when we're amused, it's also it's quite amusing, right? When everything's going just right and you're flying high and everything feels good, I mean, it's amazing, and you're attached to it and you're swimming in it and you are it. And if and when we return to ourselves and experience ourselves as the self, then we get to really play with this. yourself with who you really are. When you are identified with that infinite self, it's not bound by body, not bound by thoughts, not bound by emotions, then you really get to play. No fear. This is when we transcend fear. We can look into its eyes and understand you're part of the story that I created. I painted you. Oh, I created this character, yeah? But what's happening right now, it's like we're all filmmakers. We created this film, and now we're sitting in the theater because we wanted a full-on experience. I mean, look at us with all of the apparatus they're creating now because people want to be in the story, right? We've already done this. We're in it. This is exactly what we're doing. We created the story. We created the characters. Now we create this body to go sit in the theater and watch it, and we're scared shitless at what we're seeing. And we created the whole damn thing. I'm just saying. When we get to taste ourselves directly, then we start to be able to know how to hold that fear. Then we can recognize it for the construct that it is, that we created. But we understand that even the energy behind that fear, all of the coding behind it, the symbology, the symbols behind it, the whole energetic field that rests behind the fear, as the fear, is also in some kind of suffering, because it feeds off the suffering of others. We can even love that fear and genuinely love it. Someone's asking him a question now. Yeah? So the questioner says, the person immersed in the world has a life of many flavors. He weeps, he laughs, he loves, he hates, desires and fears, suffers, rejoices. The desireless and the fearless jnani. What life has he? Is he not left high and dry in his aloofness? The last sentence that Maharaj, Nisargadatta Maharaj had said was, without desire or fear, he enjoys it as it happens. He gets to enjoy this whole life. We are meant to enjoy this. But he didn't just say without fear, he said without desire or fear. So this has to mean, I'm supposed to enjoy this, but without desire. This is so critical, so key, such a beautiful thing to uncover when we get to uncover it. Because I think desire is the thing that trips us up the most, we as Westerners, yeah? Letting go of desire does not mean I don't have fun anymore. Relinquishing your grasping does not mean I don't enjoy life anymore and I don't feel anything sweet anymore. When I put down all of my desire, when I really put it down, and I settle into myself, the fullness of myself, and I say, I don't need anything out there, I am complete here. For most of us, it's going to start off as a mental choice. We're going to understand everything. Every time I think that there's some happiness out there, I'm messing up. And it's not about sinning or being bad or wrong. It's just that every time I think the happiness is out there, I'm going to be disappointed. Every time I think the joy is out there, I'm going to feel let down. It is within me. And in fact, the source of all desire is the source to come home to myself. When I put down that desire, all these external desires, all these things I think I want, then I can truly enjoy this life. Then I can enjoy the play. Then I can have fun with it. Then I can laugh at it and roll with it. And then whatever kind of comes to me or is taken away, I get to embrace it, and I get to be really fluid with it, right? And I know some of us connect with that concept of being like water. Yeah. You're a river, baby, right? You're not trying to grab onto the rocks. You're flowing. I think that river is in total joy, bliss. It is absolutely perfect. Nothing is lacking. It is not trying to box itself into any particular form. Water is such a beautiful physical example of formless and form, yeah? This combination of formless and form. It's ever-flowing, it's Mercury as well, right? Without desire or questioner's like, hey, okay, desireless, fearless, Jnani. This is the wise one, right? The awakened one. What life has he? Is he not left high and dry by his aloofness? Because the second we hear I don't have desire or fear, we figure I gotta be aloof, right? I just don't care. None of that is important and I'm beyond it. No, just not attached to it. Just not grasping onto it. But we'll hear what he says, yeah? His state is not so desolate. It tastes of the pure, uncaused, undiluted bliss. Ma. He is happy and fully aware that this happiness is his very nature, and that he need not do anything nor strive for anything to secure it. It follows him, more real than the body, nearer to the mind itself than the mind itself. You imagine that without cause there can be no happiness. To me, dependence on anything for happiness is utter misery. Pleasure and pain have causes, while my state is my own, totally uncaused, independent, unassailable. Bah. And this guy's not just talking, yeah? He has nobody to impress. This bliss, he says, is closer than my mind, yeah? Closer than this body. This body's just following it around. You think this is boring? The bliss that I know I am? Some of us have tasted this. And you know, it may just be that you've tasted this, but maybe not in this lifetime yet. There's a part of your being that this either speaks to or doesn't speak to. So if it speaks to any part of your being, feel into that place, that resonance, yeah? And just know we're creating a resonance field right now. We are a resonance field right now. Because I know at least one of you who's sitting here in this live stream, in this conscious grid, if you will, that we're making right now. We like to use these devices, yeah? But the bottom line is our consciousness is connected, period, end of story. But I know at least one of you has had a profound realization of the self. And once this happens, the old stuff that we used to grab onto, all those old desires kind of drop away. Sometimes I like to use the analogy, like a food analogy, because I know, like, when I was a child, my taste buds loved McDonald's, right? That was fun. That was awesome. And all the little candy from the 7-Eleven, right? That tasted really good. All that candy was great. For me now, my palate, I like some raw chocolate, maybe some nice natural raw honey, you know? Like, I don't want a Twix bar anymore. And I used to love those. And it's not that there isn't some part of my emotional body that'll appreciate it, but you're not going to tempt me with that. You're going to have to take me someplace nice, yeah? Because I know better now. And I've had food straight from the garden. I've picked it myself. I know what it's supposed to taste like. So I'm not going to sit around hankering for something that's just not. It's lost all of its appeal. And this, I believe, when we talk about letting go of desire, it should happen like this. And I don't believe you should try to push all your desire away. You're just going to torture yourself. You can hold space. If you're someone who has a lot of craving, right? You've got a lot of craving, you know it's kind of causing suffering. And for some of us, it's a straight up addiction, right? That's kind of a more obvious one, addiction. And you've got enough of a cognitive understanding that this isn't serving me. I don't want to have all these desires. I wish I could be free from desire, but I desire a lot of things. You can hold space in prayer, in meditation, and ask for grace, and ask for that grace to come and show you who you really are and help you set those things down. But if you take the really rough approach, I find it to be very violent to try to deny ourselves things that we want. Yeah, I'm actually more of the school of thought that says Oh, you want that alcohol? Go drink it, baby. Make yourself sick. Like, have fun. Just keep drinking it until you don't want it anymore. You want all that candy, you want all that action over there, whatever it is, just go for it. You think you need all that money over there, that whatever. Just dive in until you realize it's not all it's cracked up to be, and there's still something empty inside that isn't being filled up, and then that's where the real search begins, yeah? And we start just setting these things down. And if we're gonna say existence is empty of self-nature, that all of existence is empty, then all of this is, nothing is self-existent out there anyway. There's no good thing, bad thing. It's how you hold it. And this is why Christ could say, I'm going to turn this water into wine because I think that's a really good idea. Yeah? He had perfectly good water, but he wants to make it wine. Here's this enlightened dude. And he wants to make it wine. And then there's someone like me who says, wow, the more I meditate, the more I wake up, I just don't want alcohol anymore. Man, I didn't want wine. This sucks. I used to love it. So it's very important for us to know, let's not judge. Nothing is self-existently good or bad. But we got to be careful with this, right? And this is where, like, there are many tantric practices that will come from that approach and say, hey, nothing's self-existent. So we're actually going to take the thing you're not supposed to want, the bad thing, and we're going to tell you use it and make an elixir. It's literally there are many practices like this in the tantric tradition, in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. It's a very delicate, not just delicate, it can be a dangerous road. They call it riding the tiger, right? In tantric Buddhism, it's riding the tiger. You fall off, you're going to get mauled. Yeah. So be careful with things like that. We don't want to bullshit ourselves. Just being straight here, yeah? I think it's much better just to say, I know this craving isn't good for me. I know it's not serving me, but I'm just going to let myself be with it. So whenever, and it could be something really silly, right? Or it could be, you're addicted to lying, you're addicted to cheating, stealing, eating Twinkies. I don't care, whatever it is. What I invite us to do when we're engaging in these activities, to be fully present with how we're feeling inside. Because part of you will be getting the pleasure, but part of you is going to feel not so good. Most likely, yeah? There's going to be a feeling of emptiness that's not a nice emptiness. So when we talk about shunyata, when we talk about emptiness in the yogic tradition, in the Buddhist tradition, this is not like I feel empty inside and all alone. It's absolutely not that. It's like, whoa, I am not bound by all the heaviness of my story. Oh my, thank you, yeah? It's a liberating emptiness. It's absolute liberation. So what I feel like when it comes to really working with desires and wanting to put them down, I was actually talking about this today in my writing workshop. So I've been abstaining from sex for over a year now, and I'm like, this is interesting, right? It wasn't something I said, oh, I'm gonna abstain for this amount of time. It's something that happened, right? I had a separation, so it felt right to me just to abstain. What's interesting is there's so much talk, especially in the yogic tradition, about brahmacharya, which is like your sexual purity, if you will. There are so many people that are monks or they're just practitioners, and they decide, I'm going to be pure sexually, and then they are denying their desires, and they're getting all twisted up in their heads. That's my perception, yeah? I think it can. I'm not saying it can't be helpful at all. What I feel and what I've experienced personally is that with things like brahmacharya, when they come, they come. You don't need to try. And it's something that will arise within you. It's a vibration. And so moving forward, what I can see is whatever I'm engaging in that realm, so to speak, is going to have a very different flavor and texture. It will not be like it was before. But it's not something I've forced, yeah? There's certainly things that I've felt over the years I wanted to clean up personally in myself sexually. Absolutely. done. Just trying to be gentle with myself was the biggest thing. And invite in love, because that wasn't something that really came naturally to me. Sex and love weren't together. Those were actually different things. And that wasn't something that was just natural for me. And I think this is the case for many people. So that's something I tried to cultivate within myself and inviting that in. And here I am sitting in this place where it's like, like right now, I'm a brahmacharya. Like, whoa, this is super interesting, you know? And what I was mentioning to the girls earlier today, I'm like, hey, I didn't even try to do this. I didn't set out to do this. But one of the reasons we do this intentionally is so we can let the prana build up, right? Let the chi build up. Send it to the heart. Use it for awakening. And I'm like, well, isn't that interesting? Because I've had a pretty damn illuminating year. I mean, and especially lately, the flowering is really beautiful. So how lovely is that? And how lovely that it's just very natural. Yeah. I'm not denying. It's not bad girls, sin, bad, don't do that. It's not about that. It's about I'm taking the time right now to really dive in and find out who I am. And that takes some deep self-love, right? So I had a big eruption last year. And when the eruption is that big, you can't deny it. You know you need to dig deeper. Yeah. So it's like, a couple of years ago on the big island of Hawaii, there was a big eruption on the southeast side that took out many houses and the big highway that runs along the coast. You can't pretend like nothing happened. You can no longer pretend like there's not an active volcano there. And when you experience that on a personal level, I feel like the only way to go is inward. And let's just find out who we really are. Yeah? Let's find out who we really are. Let's dive into some deep self-love. And it's been absolutely a blessing. And the things that are coming of it, right? And it's kind of funny too. I haven't had any alcohol in so long. And it's funny because, as I mentioned, I actually really enjoy wine, and it doesn't make me any more clean in any way than someone who's having a glass of wine every evening. It just isn't superior or inferior. It's just what my particular system is asking of right now. And one day that could change, and I do believe that one day I might wake up and be like, I drink wine again. Cool, nice. This is nice. Let's have a beautiful glass with dinner. But who knows? Who knows? But the craving is gone, and that's for sure. And that's a beautiful thing. What do we have? We have 4 minutes left. So we just so nice. I think we just melted to our hearts and maybe even close our eyes for these last few minutes. And take a moment. I like to be really clear that we're not trying to visualize anything. We're not trying to imagine anything, though you may be visual and you may end up seeing things. Yeah. I want to take a moment, feel into the heart of your heart, and think about a time in your life where you were embodying kind of like an aspect of your personality that isn't really around anymore. So maybe it's when you were a child, you had a phase, right? Kids have phases, teenagers have phases. You were the football player. You were the whatever, yeah. A moment in your life, and it may be as an adult. I'm just using childhood as might be easier for some of us. But was there a moment in your life where you were heavily identified with your career or your family, your role in the family, rather? Something that's changed. And I want to take a moment to honor that moment. To really just feel into it. That younger one, that younger version of yourself. It may only be a couple years ago. one that thought thought really she or he knew what was going on, and this is the way it was. Opinions, beliefs, preferences, all that. Just take a moment to feel into that one. Maybe you were a budding artist, or you were starting to make your way in your career, and that was everything. Just feeling into that space, that time, that identity. And taking a moment to sit with the aspect of your being that is aware of that identity, that it was indeed a piece of your life, but that it does not define you. You are indeed not that. That thing that you so strongly identified with. Into the one. Right now, right here. That is able to hold not only that one that you thought you were, but also able to hold the one that now is recognizing, oh, I thought I was that one. There's someone that is kind of resting, I'm going to say behind, it's not literally behind that one as well. An awareness that is resting beneath, you could say, the substratum. And just take these last couple minutes to feel into the I am that I am. Just I am. I am. Allow your mind to soften into your heart. Just hold it sweetly. If it's talking, don't worry. Just feel into that innermost space. So what Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj invites us to do, what Ramana Maharshi invites us to do, is to inquire into the self, find out who you are. Take time cultivating a relationship with that one. Before you go to bed at night, when you wake up in the morning. You can remember when you're eating your food, dressing your body. As often as possible. Feeling into that one. This is very, very doable. Let me tell you, some of you run businesses and you have projects and you're handling 20 things at once. It's very similar. Right? You're wearing many hats. We're just kind of feeling into that space of the conductor. And the only thing is, the conductor isn't really noisy. The conductor is never going to say, hey, I'm here. It's going to be an experiential knowing, a direct knowing. When you feel into that space, you will probably feel temporarily out of time. You won't feel as bound by time. This is why you have experienced a yoga class or a meditation or a hike in nature, and all of a sudden you're like, where did the time go? That was an hour? I thought it was 20 minutes. Taking our hands to our heart and stack them at the heart. Hold your sweetheart. Thank you for your presence this evening. I love you. Invitation is to be really, really loving with ourselves right now. to soften